Welcome back to the channel. Thank y'all for hanging with me on this Monday. So a jig is a bait I talk a lot about. I really like a jig. It's a challenging lure to make work in tournaments because a lot of times you need the perfect day to catch them on a jig. So if you put all those eggs in that basket, you're going to hero or zero. Some days you're going to get the conditions you need and you're going to be a lot better than everyone else, and there's going to be days where you don't catch anything on it. So you got to kind of pad the way you fish when you jig fish. So like this tournament I had last Saturday, I had to go and find some fish a couple other ways, even though the jig bite in practice was so strong. Everywhere I went, I had my timing down and I could catch them flipping a big 1 ounce jig. Now, what I figured out while I was doing this is that the bass in the post spawn were all on vertical cover. So it didn't matter if I was fishing shallow or deep, the bass had to be where the contours on my map were close together. So any type of ledgy type spots is where I could catch them on the jig. Now, that tells you a lot about what bass do in the post spawn. And if you like to fish shallow like me, the majority of the year, springtime, fall, when those bass are really shallow, shallow is probably your best bet in the spring and the fall, they get on flats. They're not typically using the vertical cover like they do in the post spawn or the winter. So what the jig will teach you about fishing in the post spawn and teach you about fishing in the winter time is that you have to just look for fish on steep banks. And it's not just deep places, it's not bluff walls that you're sitting out in 20 or 30 or 40 feet. A lot of times you may be sitting in 8 and your lure is actually landing in 2, but you're on a steep bank. So if you like to look for fish like me on shallow points and flats, that just doesn't work in the post spawn. Those bass get out of the spawning areas and they go to the steepest banks that they can find. Any type of structure, really. It doesn't just have to be the, any like a river channel or something like that. It can even be a dock. So a dock is something that I typically consider as cover, but it also can be structure because bass will use a dock the same way that they are going to use a bluff wall. So they're going to go up on the pillars, they're going to go to the back of it, they're going to get on the shallowest part of it, then they're going to come out and they're going to hover underneath it, they're going to suspend, and they're going to use those posts as structure. They're going to travel up and down those posts to get comfortable, to find food, to recoup from the spawn. So I think this is a very big point. If you're like me and you like to just stay on flats year round, the post spawn is not going to make any sense to you. Even if you take all these great post spawn lures like a deep diving crankbait, Carolina rig, basically your frog fishing, your buzz baits, all your good top waters, and you just go and fish big flats, you're not going to get a clue. It's going to be a real struggle. You're probably going to catch maybe some pre-spawn fish that I still haven't moved up in spawn. You're going to catch some fish that are just getting to spawning or just finishing up spawning. But for the majority of your fish in the post spawn, relating to those steeper banks. So this is a big one for me. I really had the light bulb go off in this last tournament when I started thinking, oh, I do this. Like I do this naturally because like when I go to a Tennessee River lake, I like to fish humps. Well, humps are typically sitting on the river channel or the creek channels. They are hard spots that are close to deep water. So the whole key to this is if you are a shallow water guy, you better have your boat in deep water when you're fishing in the post spawn or going and finding those bluffy type banks, or they can even be banks like a railroad crossing. You know how typically when you find railroads next to lakes, they're like dug out and built up on the side of them. Those are perfect for the post spawn. For however this happens, I guess the bass just gravitate off those flats and go to the steeper banks, even when they're guarding fry, whatever they're doing in the post spawn. But the jig is always going to be a way to catch them on steep banks. It is okay if you want to swim it or fish it other ways on the flatter stuff. But when it comes to dragging, just your good old fashioned casting jig, your football jig, steep banks, ledges, offshore on the main river channel type ledges, bluff walls, like I said, the railroads, you have creek channels that wind around humps, all of that stuff. So important in the post spawn. Keep your boat around vertical cover. That is going to give you way more clues when you're looking for these finicky bass in the post spawn. And the jig is the way that I learned this, and it's a really good way to catch those bass as well. So try that, guys. Good luck to you, and I'll see you on the water.